In this episode of the Movement RVA Podcast, we're joined by Chris Lawyer, owner of the Weight Room in Richmond, Virginia. We talk about nutrition, opening up a gym, and 700-pound deadlifts.
I need you, I so need you. Stay nice for one more day. Give me the one from the start and the love.
All right, welcome back. Episode 6 of the Movement RVA Podcast. We have a very special guest today.
Our first guest from not inside the gym.
Chris Lawyer of the Weight Room in Richmond, Virginia. Hello, Chris.
Hello, Matt.
So in case you guys forgot, I'm Matt Crickio, and I'm seated here with my semi-permanent guest host,
You got to stop that joke.
Jake Rao. He doesn't like it.
We're gonna start the recording over.
Thanks for joining us. If you like what we're doing, subscribe to our YouTube page. You can find us by searching CrossFit RVA. If you're listening to us on your phone or other device, give us 5 stars on iTunes and write a positive review. Actually, I don't care, positive or negative. Just let us know what's up. Same thing on Stitcher. So, Jake, last week of the CrossFit Open.
It is, yeah. It's wrapping up. It's probably been my favorite Open so far, so it's been a good time.
Why is that?
I think for this one, the programming was the most balanced it's ever been. A lot of times we've hit workouts with lots of reps, low weight, and a lot of times fairly low skill. And for this Open, the gym got to shine just a little bit more. I feel like we're more comfortable with a little bit heavier weights and a little bit higher skilled workouts. So we got to see some of that in play.
So you weren't upset like most people were that handstand push-ups showed up, or muscle-ups in the beginning, or even rowing for calories?
No, I think rowing's fine. I don't see why anyone would have a problem with that other than for the equipment issues. But yeah, for this one, I love that we had a high skill movement right out of the gate. A lot of our people got either first muscle ups or got a lot better at their muscle ups. What do we got going on over here?
I had my laptop. Keep going.
Yeah, so I thought it worked out really well this time for us. We're still waiting to see how the final score is going to be. By the time this airs, we will know. I don't think the individual scores will have popped out yet. So we won't know our final placing, but we'll have a pretty good idea where we're at.
If I had to be upset about one thing, because I like being upset about things, I would say that the rower excludes, if he or she still exists, the garage gymmer. And that's a little bit of my issue with it.
Yeah, it's... but at this point, there's so many people doing it. There's a fairly high expectation on equipment. Lots of the garage gyms I see, that's one of the first things you're getting after you get your barbell and some weights is a rower. There's also a lot of affiliates you can go to. You can drop in and do it with some other people you wouldn't usually do it with.
Yeah. So you think that the programming that you created specifically for the competition group prepared them adequately for this Open?
Yeah, we certainly put a lot of effort into it. You never know what's going to pop out for the Open. And there's some things I think we definitely should have worked on a little bit more. The handstand push-up workouts got us a good bit. We did a lot of handstand push-ups over the course of the year, but never quite like they did in the Open. Not at that volume. And we didn't push the kipping handstand push-up maybe as much as we should have to try to be able to hit the numbers required to perform really well in that workout.
Did anyone in the gym break their neck?
No one broke their neck.
Good. Hallelujah.
Yeah, that's it got weird and dangerous, but it all worked out.
It's good.
Other than that, everyone was strong enough, I feel, for the movements by far. We did really well in the clean and jerk workout. We had, I think, one of the top 10 thereabout scores in the region, which is really good for us on that particular part of the Open. Beyond that, I think we did about as good as we could have with the people we have and with the progress that they've made. So I was very happy with it.
That's good. So now as we segue out of the Open season, let's segue into our next segment.
What do you got?
We can incorporate Chris into this.
Okay.
Training goals. We try to do it weekly. Sometimes they don't change. I actually got an update on mine, so I got something to say. But Chris, what are your training goals right now? And you can talk about your background a little bit so people know.
Yeah, I compete mostly in strongman nowadays. I've competed in powerlifting. For years, that was what I did. I've done one Olympic weightlifting meet and prepared. I've kind of lost count how many athletes for Olympic weightlifting meets. But the goal right now, had a few things going on, moved the gym and such, and got right back to competing in strongman and had kind of a tough run of it because I didn't spend any time preparing. So now I'm competed through July last year. I had a little one on the way, and when she came in May, and so I kind of committed to.
Yeah, I
seems
know
to
how
be a
much
theme, right?
That'll mess with your training a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. So just to be more available, I told myself I wasn't going to enter any competitions, and as tempting as it is, you always, if you've done it, it's always, the taste is in your mouth. You want to get back out there and do it again. So I spent the past year or so trying to get myself strong again, and I'm finally getting back into PR territory on some stuff. So
I heard you had a PR this week.
I did.
What was it?
3:05 per hand farmer's walk. So which is something I wouldn't have thought I'd be able to do 10 years ago, and when I started doing this, and it's kind of nice to do something for that long and still hit PRs.
Yeah.
Not always reasonable, but it's nice when it happens.
At certain points, have you felt that maybe you wouldn't hit certain PRs again, or that you'd like
Yes.
certain things? Because I feel like that's a very,
I never think I'm going to hit PRs again, ever.
I feel like that's a very real concern for a lot of people, especially, we see it at the gym all the time, is that people maybe hit a certain age or just a certain situation in their life where they didn't have as much time to train, or, whatever, they're just getting older, and then they're just like, I'm not going to hit PRs anymore.
Well, it's usually much more dramatic than that. People remember what they could do, and if they're still going to the gym, they expect to keep hitting PRs in spite of the reality of what's going on in the world, or what their specialization is, or what they're focused on. It's like somebody trying to hit a squat or a bench press PR in the middle of the open. That's not specific to what you're doing at that time.
Yeah.
It's just not a realistic thing. And I've been in that place, and you like to think you're smarter than that after so many years of coaching and training people, and we're all still human. So it's good to remember that perspective when you're working with other people, because they're going to ask.
Do you feel like you did anything when your training wasn't going so hot that sort of made sure that when the time was right, you could still ramp things up quickly and get back to it? Or
Yes. You pick the things, you never stop training your weaknesses. Weakness training is something that's very long-term and usually going to differ from individual to individual. Once you've identified a weakness or a weakness you tend to have, you've got to maintain that as best you can and hopefully work towards eliminating it long-term. When you prepare for competition, your strengths will come back very quickly. You can shift your focus and just crush it because hopefully that weakness won't be hindering you.
Yeah. I feel like as I've had less time to train recently, I worked a little bit on my hip mobility, which has become sort of a weakness for me. I notice a lot of my squat depth was getting a little bit shady, not what it should be. Worked on my hip mobility. Worked on a lot of sort of like core stability stuff. I've ditched the belt for a little while as I wasn't training as heavy, and try to pay attention a lot more to how I was breathing and, just moving better there. One thing I did notice, though, is pressing is a big weakness of mine, and I neglected it for the past few months, and now it's
we'll pay dearly.
It is a much bigger weakness at this point.
Yeah.
I remember, Chris did programmed for me for maybe 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, something like that.
And we did a lot of work on pressing, and I remember I strict pressed 200 pounds, and then I was like, we're in the group class doing 135, and I was like, this feels kind of heavy right now.
Is that a new training goal, Jacob?
I think it will be. I need to just get it back under, get my feet back under me first on that one.
It'll come back.
Yeah.
If you've done something and you could stay healthy enough and keep your nose to the grindstone, you'll get it back.
It is interesting, man. I thought that squatting was at one point a big weakness of mine, but I squatted a lot for a long period of time, very consistently. So I am pleased that since I did a little bit of squatting during this off time, that it's pretty much stayed right about where I'd like it to be.
Yeah, it will. It's interesting you mentioned the beltless work. I go to that even though trunk strength usually isn't a problem for me. But I find a lot of people when they're squatting lighter, they still want to throw the belt on and do whatever. I think the belt is an important tool for sparing your back and testing your legs, working on getting your hips stronger. But if you're not able to get the workouts in like you used to, or for whatever reason you're just trying to work to maintain your squat, I think keeping the belt off is a good idea. Be reasonable. If you got a deadlift workout coming up, don't blow your back out squatting without a belt. But I think the beltless squat is a great idea.
For me, it's just like an awareness thing. Like I could tell, I could pay attention much better to actually how how tight I was staying and how well I was breathing there.
Yeah, you'll learn how to breathe without a belt on. That's a lot of folks throw the belt on, they cinch it up, they take a breath, and they essentially just hold their breath. They don't use what's called diaphragmatic breathing. Without the belt on, you'll quickly learn how to get that air lower into the stomach, into the midsection, and improve your intra-abdominal pressure for transfer from the legs into the bar.
Yeah.
Speaking of belts, update on Matt Can't Be Fat training goal.
Yeah.
Nice.
Taking the fat belt off, hashtag that. A bunch of us at the gym have started doing the Renaissance periodization auto template, who, if you don't know at home, they are the, Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, like the dietitians for a lot of the lifters on Muscle Driver, a lot of figure or bodybuilding competitors, run by, and I could be totally wrong, someone on the internet will correct me, I'm sure, if people even listen to this, Juggernaut Training Systems.
It's at least on their online store.
Yeah.
That's as much as I know.
So there's 5 of us here doing it, and it's pretty, it's kind of fucking weird. It's really weird in the sense that there are way more carbs than I ever ate, and it's freaking me out. But we're only in week 1, so we'll see where it goes from here. I'm sure Chris has opinions on carbs that I'd like to hear.
I feel like I saw that someone from the weight room post about it. Do you know of anyone in the weight room doing this?
No, I don't.
I'm not going to drop names. I know who it is.
No, I don't know. I don't know anything about it. All I know is it's from what I've heard, it's very macronutrient based and
and timing.
I feel like meal timing. There's when I was coming along, it's obligatory back in my day.
Back in my day.
Back in my day, the meal timing and meal frequency were huge, and so immediately, academia, your typical, fitness nerds got out there and tried to disprove that this was important. And the issue wasn't that this magic of timing your meals or how many meals you get. It was more over the control of your own appetite. So if you want to gain weight and you're eating smaller meals more frequently, you can add calories on the day much more easily. And if you want to lose weight, you can restrict without being hungry.
Right.
I read recently that we don't notice a 20% swing in our caloric intake, above or below. So it gives you much more control over these things throughout the day and allows you to affect a trend. And if you look at your dieting as a trend, you're going to have much greater success with a lot less hiccups and stresses and bad days. We've had, if anybody's cut weight, they've had bad days.
Yeah.
I feel like something like the Renaissance diet, I'm not familiar with it specifically because I stopped paying attention years ago. But it sounds like another approach to that. The timing of carbohydrate, I feel, is far more important for performance. You don't want to go into a workout with your blood sugar in the toilet unless you're one of those few people who just does really, really well on low carbohydrates.
Yeah, which is why they do it. They say that's explicitly why they time carbohydrates as many as they do around the workouts.
Well, which I guess is, from my perspective, entirely reasonable.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we actually just got the ebook, so I feel like we're a little behind on it.
Can I get the cliff notes when you get through it?
Yeah, I'll send them your way.
The Jake notes?
I mean, it was, so we haven't dug in there. I mean, we just really looked at the template so far, got a few people started on it. I mean, it seems pretty straightforward in terms of, it's nice that there's a plan for it. You pretty much start with it's a lot of protein. That protein amount stays consistent throughout the whole diet.
Yep. As it should.
They give you, I guess it's usually a 3-month process for most people.
They say don't do it for longer than 3 months, but yeah, generally.
Why?
Because they don't think that, because they got a cut and a mass gain program, and they say it's usually not a good idea psychologically or physiologically to diet for longer than 3 months. I think it should be a lifestyle change.
Right, I agree. I think I think trying to, I guess, undertake some dramatic short-term goal is usually a mistake.
I agree.
It's I've been trying to get back. One of the things I did after my last contest personally was stop tracking, make sure I got my protein and just eat whatever else I wanted. I eat pretty healthy anyway, but I gained like 20 pounds. So now that I'm going to start kind of getting closer to entering contests again, I started restricting and tracking what I'm eating, and have very casually, like you said, I hit a PR last week, lifetime PR for me, which is not a new thing, or not a current thing. I don't do that very often. But I've lost 6 pounds over the past 12 weeks.
Right.
Very comfortably, very easy, still able to get my workouts in. And I know it's not attractive. It's not something people are going to look at and make, oh, yeah, I want to lose 6 pounds in 12 weeks. But it's real weight, and I'm getting stronger and back at my best, and I think headed in the right direction. I don't feel like there's any risk to me maintaining this diet more than 3 months. I feel like long-term I'm going to be healthier, and hopefully I can hold on to the strength gains I made by healing post-contest season last year. And I guess that's, while I endorsed it for their carbohydrate timing, I guess I'll now crap on it a little bit for the 3 month thing.
Take a big crap on
Well,
it.
I just think that's not people have short-term goals, but I think there's a smarter way to do it than committing your life to 3 months. I mean, how long do we live? 3 months is not a very long amount of time.
Right. And, looking at it, depending on how it goes, because full disclosure, we're going to talk about this every week, I think, but I gained 2 pounds, 3 pounds doing it last week. And I think it's because the amount of carbohydrates.
It's water.
Right.
And you're taking what? It's over close to 300 grams?
200 grams. It's the activity level that I'm at, it's 1 gram per pound of body weight.
Okay.
So I think that there's certain things you could do applying these principles that could make it a lot more sustainable than how it's currently prescribed. So if I'm going to take anything away from that after the arbitrary 3 months is up, that's what I'm going to apply, depending on the effectiveness of the actual program.
Chris, I know you've done a lot of, nutrition work with yourself and other people, and it did not have a name.
No, I started off as a weight loss coach. And that's sort of back, I guess, in the mid to early 90s as a teenager.
Right.
I lost a bunch of weight. I had a twin who was naturally very fit. Didn't really do anything too differently, and I kind of got, kind of nothing. I got very sick of being identified as which one's Chris. He's the fat one, and so
I guess you don't want to be the fat one.
No, it's terrible. I'll spare you guys how impacting that. Yeah, I mean it's well when people look at you and judge you for how you look. I'm gonna sidetrack a minute.
That's what we're here for.
I feel that vanity is the worst normal reason for exercise. I think
Agreed.
I think the way you look is of the reasons people will exercise. Vanity is a horrible one. I think it lends to all of the bad things that come with exercise and what should be healthy eating. You're going to mess up if you're only concerned with how you look, because you will never look as good as you want to. I think health is number one. I think human performance is number two. And I think number three is either fun or happiness, however you want to look at it. But if you are healthy, if you are performing well, and if you are happy, you're going to look good no matter what your body composition is. So going back on why I started doing this, I don't think it was the best motivation, but I'm glad. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Right.
So at least being insecure, being the fat twin paid off for something, but this kind of perpetual ideology that you have to look a certain way, I think is a terrible mistake. And I think a lot of people get in this industry and hold on to it and come up with things with sexy names like the Renaissance diet, and I feel like that's the wrong attitude. You wouldn't have 3 month cuts if people weren't trying to look a certain way in a short period of time.
Yeah. So what are your go-tos in terms of for nutrition? I mean, are you looking first at caloric balance, or you look at tweaking any particular macronutrient, or what's the basics there?
With most people starting out, I will try to get them at their protein need. Once the protein need's met, fibers, carbohydrates, and I try not to track it. I do. I have to. It's far too easy with my appetite to slip and overeat. But with most people, if you clean up their diet and help them appreciate the foods they eat for entertainment as entertainment foods and not nutrition, then they will see a benefit. You put those, like the proverbial cheat day, is real popular in diets.
And you call it entertainment food.
Yeah,
I like that name.
Yeah, it's fun. I like going out to a nice meal. I love nice restaurants.
Well, that way cheating is bad.
Right.
So you don't put any kind of moral judgment on it. It's
right.
entertainment food.
Right.
So I think that's actually really effective thing to call it for the psychology of the person that's taking on the diet, either way.
Are you going to plug Buckheads real quick?
Yeah, hell yeah. Buckheads and Joe's Inn, that's pretty much where I eat, yeah. Yeah, little known, you can eat healthy at Joe's Inn. A lot of people think you have to go in there and get the loaded spaghetti, but they have broiled chicken on the menu, salmon usually.
You've proved it many a time in my presence.
That's right. It's true.
So we like Joe's Inn, which is a perfect transition to our next segment, things that we don't like this week. Did you like that?
I
like reversing
that was good.
Suddenly
just cutting it
with
off
a connection.
And moving forward.
It's like parallelism. But Jake, I know that you have a very strong things you don't like this week.
So for us, obviously the Open is over, and one of the things that I've seen, and this is magnified a little bit because I am a part of a CrossFit affiliate owners Facebook group that's supposed to only have affiliate owners, but there's been
Are you implying it does not?
I mean, I'm sure it doesn't.
Okay.
There's many people in there.
Yeah.
But It's interesting the amount of complaining that there has been about this Open. I felt like whenever a new workout was announced that affiliate owners would complain about either the logistics of it or the challenge to their members, or the difference between the scaled and the RX division, which I just found really interesting when we have what is a very unique, worldwide fitness competition. Everyone is doing it. I'm sure there was over 100,000 people doing the Open this year. I really have no idea the number, but just guessing from past years.
Right.
And the playing field is level for everybody. And it seems to me like in any kind of competition, whether it's a strongman competition or the Open, that if the playing field's level, that there's really not a whole lot to complain about. People would complain that the muscle-ups were first. People complained that there were some more challenging movements or more challenging weights in there. If there was any sort of scoring hiccups, it was a lot of complaining. And I felt like that was really not against the spirit of the whole idea and the spirit of the competition. We're
weighing in as a non-CrossFitter, just from what you're saying,
yeah.
Not liking something doesn't make it unfair.
Absolutely. And I felt like it was, I don't know how it couldn't be fair the way it was all set up. So I thought it was a little discouraging to see how much complaining from affiliate owners, instructors, coaches. Those should be the people that were sort of leading the charge to maybe convince their members that this is fair, that this is something that they can still apply themselves towards and to find some achievement in, even if it's harder than you expected it to be. Like I bombed out of half the events in the nationals that I ever did, and it was still a good time. There was nothing unfair.
Everybody else
about
had the same events, right? No, I think, and if they made it harder to compete in the CrossFit Open, people would be pissed about that. They're happy that they get to do it, but then complain about it because that's the nature. It's the most similar thing we have in strength sports is the judging. People will always, say a judge is too strict or too loose or giving stuff away or whatever.
You're the hard judge.
But apparently I am. I don't feel unfair, but without the judges, and the judges should be judging everybody the same, there would be no event.
Yeah.
And so when you complain about the nature of the Open, I've never competed in CrossFit, but just what I know about it from talking to you, Jake, and other people that come by the gym, it seems like the whole nature of it is that everybody does the same thing. Nobody knows what it's going to be, and if you complain at the end of the day, it couldn't be more fair. There's no room to complain on that.
That's right.
And this year there was even an RX and a scale division, so you even had an option.
Yeah, you had the out.
Yeah. So, and it was, I don't know. It couldn't have been any more fair, I think, in most ways. So I was, but yeah. So I think next year, hopefully, people just buck up and do it.
And I'll have the last word on that. If you don't like it, don't do it.
There it is.
That's fair enough.
And so with that, we're going to go to a word from our sponsors.
The Superfit Games is a competition series that gives athletes an opportunity to compete year-round. Everyone from those new to competing to former college athletes.
The thing I like about Superfits, they're always on time. The workouts are always good. They're good workouts, good movements, awesome people, friendly environment, great judging. I haven't had any problems with my judging as in other competitions I have. The people that run it are great.
I like introducing people into a good competition. This one's close, a lot of local events. It's a great comp.
In 3, 2, 1, let's go!
We provide a consistent competitive atmosphere, everything from the logistics to the programming. The Superfit staff is at every single competition we run, ensuring that you get the same experience every time you come.
I met really good friends at Forward. I met them through Superfit. I got some friends at RVA, Jamie, Jake, Derek, those people, they're all a lot. I've expanded my friendship probably tenfold.
It's easy to go into the gym and just work out and not give it everything you got, but when you're here competing with all these great athletes, it makes you push yourself even more, which makes you better, makes you improve. So that's another reason why I do like doing competitions at Superfit.
The Superfit Games is a premier competition series in the Mid-Atlantic, and we're constantly expanding to other areas of the country.
it brings out a different side of people. They do things they never thought they could do. Our girls are here doing toes to bar and pull-ups, and it's just amazing to see somebody go from being just a regular fitness athlete to somebody turning into a competitor.
And welcome back.
That was a wonderful break.
It was.
A word from our sponsors or not?
Perhaps.
Now,
Chris, I want to know about the weight room.
All right, I guess
just
short
broad as
version,
we can.
it's a gym down the street. No, we opened in Northside officially.
Of Richmond, Virginia, by the way, if you're not in...
That's a good point. We are international here.
Then we get an Australian.
We have an Australian listener.
Nice.
Just
Okay.
one.
Well, to the person in Australia, we're in Richmond, Virginia, United States, and we opened up in Northside in a small strip mall pre-CrossFit, October 2000. I make the joke all the time that if Jake was in business, I would be working for him right now. But there really was nowhere. If you wanted to do Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting, strongman, which I wasn't even doing strongman yet, you had nowhere to go. You could join maybe a small training studio, but the Olympic lifters were literally lifting in their garages. The powerlifters were either in their garage and or at Walker's gym down in Hopewell or Mike's Olympic gym in Mechanicsville. There wasn't anything else. There's some small, like, locally owned gyms, but they weren't really powerlifting gyms. They were more like places to go kind of get meathead. So when I started training people and coaching and expanding on my experience, like we mentioned earlier with weight loss, I got in to Olympic lifting and had to find some bumpers, and that's with nowhere to lift them. Actually, the guys at Body Creations let me take them in there and lift a few times, but we opened up basically to have somewhere to train, and it grew from there. We've expanded 4 times, and over that time, being just a home for you all right, Matt?
I'm good.
Yeah, we had
I'm good, everybody.
Just flip it.
Well, we became a home for people that wanted to compete in strength sports or train with those methods for other things. We saw athletes from other sports start popping in, and eventually CrossFit happened, and it became okay for people to do Olympic lifting and a little bit more, I guess, acceptable to the masses to come in and throw some weight around. And we've enjoyed competitors in all the strength sports, American world record holders, people who started out, 1,200 pound totals, get up around 1,700 in powerlifting, and we just kind of keep doing that. And people that want to come by do, and we get to learn a lot from it. And it's been a very, very worthwhile experience for me.
And you and Jake have had a relationship for quite a while, huh?
Yeah, Jake came in. This is a good one to talk about. Jake popped in around 2006, 2007, I think 2006, I believe.
Yeah.
And we were in our second location this time, which was 1,500 square foot industrial garage. Real typical, I guess, startup now.
Yeah, I never got to see Northside, which is disappointing.
I have pictures somewhere. I'll show you.
I heard there was wall-to-wall mirrors. Was that?
There were. It was a very narrow room.
I know you told me the story. You had to create some depth in the space.
The illusion of space.
So you built a fun house.
I built a fun house,
Yeah.
and it's funny you say that the mirrors were very fun housey, and we had to aim the racks away because lifting into a mirror is really hard to do effectively. And I also don't entirely enjoy looking at myself, so I didn't want to face the mirrors. And we would have people come in from like American Families or Gold's Gyms or whatever, and they would have to face the mirror to lift. and they would lift terribly, and you would try to explain to them that they just turned around, they could feel what they were doing, it'd be much more natural. And back in 2002, smart training stuff just didn't happen, so You just lost that battle and they went back to where they came from.
So Jake, scrawny, young, walks in 2006.
All right, we had 2 guys there who were kind of doing their own thing locally, and they came in about the same time. And both of them had an interest in eventually opening their own gym. And Jake was running. I don't know if I ever told you this, but I immediately Googled you because you mentioned CrossFit and doing things. And I knew CrossFit Lombardi was a thing. Like you guys were doing the kind of back alley thing at the time.
That was the old name of the gym, by the way.
Yeah. So
you found me because when I stepped in,
I knew who you were before you got there.
I was no one at all.
But I know everything that happened.
But yeah, you own this town.
It's my no. You're the Wadfather. It's my business to pay attention. So the when he came in, he filled out his waiver, and I was like, this guy, And I was like, well, that's good. He seems like a nice guy. I said, when it doesn't work out, he'll join the weight room. We'll be all right. So he joined the weight room, and it worked out anyway. And we've, I guess, been friends ever since, because at the time I had, downer note, had a friend who owned a gym in Richmond, Iron House, which is now the Iron House Condominiums, I believe. And he had just passed away, and it's kind of hard to find a friend in the gym industry. So it was nice. Jake came in very humble and very approachable and very smart, and never once got to the point, no matter how big his business gets or how involved he gets or how qualified as a coach he becomes, never really established himself as an adversary or somebody who didn't want me to do well or didn't want our athletes to do well. So much so that we share a weightlifting team now. We train together, compete together. He's even let me help him a few times, which was a great honor. I think that's probably how I wound up here. But watching the other CrossFit pop in and pop out has been an interesting thing, because I feel like Jake has done a really good job maintaining that. You say you're the the hugger and the hater.
Yeah, I'm the hater.
Jake's done a good job
Jake's
being
the hugger.
hugger. Yeah.
Well, I thought, coming into the weight room early and finding that early was, an awesome resource. I think without it, like you were saying, there was really nowhere else to train and to get good, be in a good training environment.
Yeah, you weren't there yet.
Well, that's why we started, was because there's no CrossFit gyms at that point. So, I feel like that's about the coolest reason to get going, is because there's really no other option. You need to find a place for other people to train to do whatever it is you like doing.
Fulfilling, if nothing else.
Yeah. So it was an awesome experience, because, CrossFit dabbles in so many different disciplines, and it's hard to immediately find good resources on those things. You have to sort of just dive in and hope for the best. And at that point it was whatever you could find on the internet. There weren't even really good books out.
The internet was actually pretty bad then too. It was like anybody had a blog, and there weren't enough people out there to really check and balance them.
Right.
So everybody, it's bad enough now, but back then it was far less volume.
Mm-hmm.
So you had no room for the cream to kind of rise. It was just everything just sat there and stagnated, and people would do what they saw on the internet, and you still see a lot of that, but there's at least enough kind of naysayers or typical antagonistic types of people out there to make you a little cautious what you say and have to defend yourself if you say something too outlandish. But yeah, it's funny you mentioned coming to the gym and having resources, because I had the same benefit. That's one thing about having the weight room when we did, is that the guys who've been training for 15, 20 years came in there. That's when you came in, I immediately took an interest in CrossFit, which I had just sat around and mocked it like the rest of Richmond until Jake showed up. It's what people do. Like powerlifters, weightlifters, strongmen, they just dump on CrossFit all the time. You meet somebody who's doing it and being very reasonable about it, then you take an interest and you pay attention.
It's all about who the representative of the actual movement or whatever it is.
I will say one of my first experiences, probably within the first few months, was coming in, and Rory was in there.
Yeah.
It was the weight room. So again, 1,500 square feet.
We had like 40 members at the time.
There was lots of also somehow there's still various nooks and crannies to do things. In the gym, it was it wasn't wide open. There was
we still do that, even with 11,000 square feet. We're still pigeonholing things. It's become a habit.
It's so people could find room to almost hide in the gym, and I feel like Rory had his bar. I feel like it was between the bathroom and the front door.
Who is Rory?
He's a very strong man.
He was one of our elite powerlifters.
And
Rory Lazowski.
He.
Can I Google him like you Googled Jake?
Don't Google him.
Don't Google him.
He did about 6 or 7 years, I think, as a natural bodybuilder, and you'll find pictures you don't want to see.
You're going to see those first before any.
Those are the ones I want to see.
Go for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those will be his pictures. Will be in the notes for the podcast.
I'm on my phone right now.
But Rory, I think he was pulling. It was a new PR, I believe, or it was around there. It was in a good weight for him, and it was over 700.
705, yeah.
Yeah, 705 deadlift. No one was cheering for him. No one was looking at him. I think someone
just another 700-pound deadlift.
I think someone gave him a little pat on the back.
Yeah. The funny thing about that is, this is a testament to guys that come around who really know what they're doing. They'll listen to anybody who makes sense. They're not going to listen to somebody because they're strong or because they look right. If somebody else said to listen to them. If you make sense, they're going to stop and say, okay, well, I've had a lot of success listening to people who make sense, so I'm going to listen to this guy.
Right.
And Rory was one of the easiest people to weigh in and help, in spite of being one of the strongest people I ever met. And he had a tendency to really tug and shrug his deadlift once it passed the knee. He'd kind of rein it in for his lockout, and he'd been stuck around 670 for the longest time. I told him he did that and suggested he let the bar hang at lockout a little bit. And just a few weeks later, he's doing this. He told me he was going to go for a PR, and I'm over on the other side working on my computer writing a program for somebody. And he does it and comes over and tells me about it, and I, high-fived him or whatever, shook his hand, whatever we did back then. We didn't do the fist bumping.
It wasn't invented yet.
No, nobody fist bumped back then. But then, he went about his day. It wasn't until years later, Jake. I didn't even realize Jake was there. I didn't remember you being there for that. But it was makes for a pretty good story that it seemed like a normal thing to happen. Roy was just that humble. He didn't tell anybody, "Hey, I'm going to go pull 700 pounds now." We just didn't know he was doing that. We might have celebrated a little bit if we'd known.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Garrett was in the corner hitting like box squat doubles at 450 or something like that.
Probably
with
more than that,
three
yeah.
sets of chains and I think it was like his light speed day.
Speed day.
He was
box squat with chain sounds right.
Yeah, so that was the kind of place it was. And so for me as a guy just getting started and really having no idea like what was possible or what was out there, like what people could do, it immediately set the bar pretty high. And then I spent a lot of time there, so it was certainly one of the things that helped me contribute. I feel like a lot here is learning things quickly, being at the weight room a lot. I mean, I feel like, especially at the beginning, I feel like I was training there a lot. I don't even remember anymore, but I was around.
Yeah, I saw you around.
Yeah. So,
what is your background, Chris? We know how you got into it, but how did you gain, the knowledge and expertise that you have?
Terribly low self-esteem.
Okay.
Yeah, whenever I help somebody, I'm afraid I'm not going to know the answer, not going to be able to help them. So I pay a lot of attention, I do a lot of research. After 20 years of this, it ends up looking like you know a whole lot.
Right.
Really, a lot of self-study. I got really lucky. Like I said, there was nowhere to do what we did back then. So the few people that actually found the weight room came in there with a lot of good information, a lot of experience. They didn't always understand the science of it, and they would describe it in these terrible ways. I mean, God bless these guys. They taught me so much. But their version of science was not right. And so I would take a lot of this and I would study it and I would pay attention to it, and started off in bookstores and eventually the internet, and just trying to draw my own conclusions on things. And you start narrowing things down and finding common denominators, and you learn what the fundamentals are. When nobody, even with the books out there written called Powerlifting and Powerlifting a Scientific Approach, and they just they say what the person who wrote the book has found. They don't actually look for that common denominator among everybody. So when you look at weightlifters, you look at powerlifters, you look at strongmen, or I guess nowadays CrossFitters, you look at the common denominators. What are the people who are good doing, and why is it working? Not just should I be doing it? And that's, I guess, holding on to that from 2000 until now, and actually before then, I was training people in the mid-90s. You will learn a lot, and you'll always learn. And these things might change. New information, new practices come in. Like in 1995, I didn't know what the bands or chains were used in lifting at all. I didn't come up with this idea. I saw it in a gym in like 1998 and thought, that's the smartest thing ever. I'll put chains on a bar. And then I got the internet and I was like, oh crap, well, there's somebody up in Ohio already doing that.
Right.
It's everybody learns these things differently, and just I guess paying attention, working really hard at it, and being afraid of not knowing the answer. If you're diligent, I mean, you can really learn what you're doing and go pretty far. I think it would have been a more reasonable process to go to college, but I wasn't in the right time and place in my life for that when that time and place happened, so right. I had to do it the hard way.
Some people might disagree about the value of going to college for this type of thing.
Well, I'll say, and I actually, every so often, one time in particular, I was in a very concentrated group of students asking me about being strength coaches one day, and they all wanted me to say, you don't need an education, but it took me... and I'm still learning stuff that they learned in 4 years. Go to school, get the curriculum, learn the anatomy, physiology, learn the science, the physics, the things that you need in the gym. Learn that, and then come meet the guys like Jake and I who are doing it every day, putting it into practice.
Yeah, I mean, it's at least a good foundation that you can build off of to have that. I mean, I don't have it either. You got this.
I think that's a good takeaway for people that are listening. Stay in school.
That's right. Yeah,
I have to tell Matt to stay in school all the time. Yeah. So I know the weight room isn't just a place for powerlifters, and I know that's something.
No, probably less than half the membership actually compete.
Yeah.
But they're the ones you'll see because they're in there 2-3 hours at a time.
So I know for us, like we just wrapped up the Open. We have sort of like a yearly cycle that we plan out, and we do a little bit less lifting as we approach the Open. And so now that we're done, this is our off season, and this is when we're going to lift the most. And so we have to, well, I guess, what have you seen, what's different about teaching and working with the general population, not competitive powerlifters? Because I feel like those are some things that, you know, we have to think about as well.
Sometimes it's a lot easier. They spend less time looking for what it's supposed to be and trying to imitate some great lifter that they found on the internet or wherever, or in their gym. There's actually one guy we trained with who's really, really good, who a lot of people come in and tell me, well, this guy said who did so much, and he was a great lifter, but they aren't him. Yep. You know, they aren't an 800-pound raw squatter. You're not gonna. It's not gonna happen overnight. This guy spent 22 years getting there, and they come in and say, well, I want to train how he trained. I want to do what he did. The major difference I find with people off the street is that you have to find their weaknesses. Somebody who's been competing, doing things, you can talk to them about their better lifts, worse lifts, and more quickly ascertain what they need to work on. Somebody off the street, I mean, you can kind of stereotype, tight hip flexors, whatever, weak trunk, these sorts of things, quad dominance. But until you see a move, you don't know. And with a competitive lifter or somebody who's played other sports, you have at least some inclination to know what they need to work on. I do think, though, the people who come in who aren't competitive athletes, who are just training to either become one or have no interest in it at all, they're just training for their health, it is in a lot of ways easier because they're going to listen to you. They're going to understand what you're saying. They're going to appreciate it more. You're not working against some preconceived notion of what it's supposed to be.
Yeah. So when these people are coming in off the street, I mean, people have never lifted in their life. What are some of the first things you have them do, or what are the first things you teach them about lifting?
Squatting. Right out of the gate, I teach them how to squat. If somebody does show up for a group where we're doing, say, Olympic lifting first, I'll put a bar in their hands and get them in the positions. Most of our group programs are labeled as advanced, so we don't have too many people showing up for that out of the gate. First thing we teach people to do is how to squat, how to recruit out of the hip, and get them moving towards like a low bar back squat. We teach pressing mechanics, very, very basic movement. We'll grab some dumbbells, something and effectively that's harder than barbells. So if they can do the movements correctly with that stuff, it's a fairly easy transition. Yeah,
I mean, I feel like I've seen some interesting things at the weight room maybe I wouldn't have thought of. Like I know with some clients who maybe can't squat to full depth yet and stuff, I see you guys use things like the box or like a bench or whatnot to squat to initially, which I think it's funny. I feel like in the CrossFit world, there's this huge focus on immediately doing just like full depth squats and stuff like that I feel like it's easy. It's I think some people might shy away from something like that because it looks like you're not doing the same movement or like
range of motion is relative. And I think thinking that Matt, Jake, and Chris can all have the same range of motion on every lift is absurd if you know human beings.
I have no range of motion.
There you go. So that's, yes. So Jake and Chris then, because Matt has no range of motion.
Leave me out of this.
All right.
I'm like a sea sponge.
What does that even mean?
But the point being that if you have a standard for a movement and you try to apply it blindly to every individual you meet, then you're not considering the individual. And that's one of the things. If we do have a method, it's we consider there's an individual, an athlete, and an event in all situations. And when you're programming and teaching people how to move, you have to consider what athlete and what event are you training for. It could be getting started on weightlifting. It could be getting started on conditioning, preparing for a triathlon. All these things I've seen in the past week. And when you have the individual, you have to say, how do I get them from where they are now to whatever that event is, whatever that goal is, whatever the thing is they're trying to do. If you say, well, here's what competitive weightlifters, here's what competitive powerlifters do, and you take just, somebody off the street and stick them in that mold, they're not going to fit. You've got to find out how to make them fit. You've got to take them from where they are to where they're trying to get. That's I think forcing yourself to some pretended ideal is going to be injurious and potentially injurious and definitely a mistake.
So with some of these new folks coming in, you're teaching them how to squat and press. What are some of the first issues what are some common issues you run across? Like, what do you think a lot of people who are just getting started with lifting, what are they doing incorrectly that you might need to work with them on a little bit more?
I assume you're talking about people who've been like training on their own and come in there to kind of get into our program, or?
It could be, something like that. I mean, either training on their own, which I'm sure is a whole different set of issues, or just new people in general.
The biggest issue I see is the shiny pebble. People see a gimmick or a method or a way of lifting, Klokov just posted a video of him stopping in the middle doing a pause snatch.
Yeah,
and
so everyone's going to want a pause snatch.
I'm going to see a million knuckleheads pause snatching next week. And it drives me nuts that they'll take these things that are very fringe and probably something he did for the hell of it, not to actually get better, and try to use that. One time I walked in the gym, a guy had a safety squat bar on the back of his neck, a barbell in his hands, chains, bands hanging off everything. And I saw that picture on the internet the next day. These things, you have to think before you act. Hiring somebody who has experience is a really good idea if you can find them, or just get a friend who's got a lot of time in the gym, get with them. Beginners trying to start out based on things they see elite athletes doing is a terrible mistake. There's lots of them out there, and you can blanket them all as being things that seem attractive aren't always a good idea.
I can definitely see that. Other, like, maybe some specifics. I mean, do you run into issues with people not, having issues actually figuring out how to breathe during a squat or maintain even just basic positions, and sort of how do you work them through those things?
Well, diaphragmatic breathing is huge. I don't think people talk about it enough. I actually had a lady come through who's a coach somewhere else, didn't know what a hook grip was. She's an Olympic weightlifter, and didn't know how to breathe while squatting heavy.
How do you describe that to people, like the diaphragmatic breathing?
I tell them to practice it sitting down. Obviously, if you take a big enough breath, your chest is going to lift up, but to feel the sensation, sitting down, taking a breath without your chest lifting up, you'll feel the air go to the stomach, and that's that air below the diaphragm. That's a good way to practice, and anybody can practice that while they're watching the podcast here.
I like it. There's going to be people, hopefully over 100, doing it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Cool, so we want to start wrapping this thing up?
There's so much more to talk about. I just want to say we're going to definitely bring Chris back to get really deep into some of this strength training stuff. But
yeah, we've already been going for an hour or something like that.
Chris, what do you want to plug?
I had something earlier. Fedkitchens.com.
Fedkitchens.com. If you're local in Richmond, they will deliver food to you.
I'm actually drinking a paleo-friendly energy drink, which I'm not really sure how that works.
We are not plugging them though.
Yeah, no, I don't think Paleolithic man had energy drinks.
I don't think he had them either.
I will say that Fed also does provide us with food and many other CrossFit gyms in town.
Very good food.
Chris and I co-promote strongman competitions. We have one coming up. What's the date?
August 29th, Jake.
Yeah. So we'll probably have.
And what's the name of that competition?
The River City Strongman Challenge. Going on 11 years this year.
Yeah, and we've been doing it together for 4, 5,
I think.
Yeah, so
Something
we have that coming up. Hopefully it'll be yet another good show.
Jake, what do you want to plug?
A weightlifting meet coming up, Jake?
You got a weightlifting meet coming up?
We have a weightlifting meet coming up. So we have the RVA Open coming up on April 18th and 19th.
Let them know some names of people that are lifting that.
Oh, God, that's hard. So
several times games competitor Nate Schrader.
Yeah, and the men, Kane Wilkes, the number 105-plus kilo lifter in the country.
Nicole
Capurso. Outlaw lifter. We got lots of them.
We got lots of great stuff going on.
We got some good lifters. I'm going to forget all sorts of people because I'm not good at thinking of names on the fly, but it's going to be our biggest meet yet. We have probably going to have close to 140 competitors total, and the fourth session in each day is just invitational lifters, so just people who are towards the top of the pack, usually top 5 to 10 on the national level in their weight class. They're going to be lifting, so it's going to be a really exciting time. Our biggest meet yet. We got muscle drivers coming in and hooking us up with tons of equipment and bringing a lot of their lifters too, so it's going to be a really big crowd.
How big is that cash prize?
Cash prize, it's first place, $600, works its way down. So pretty good.
Before you guys sign off, I have to admit, I did a weightlifting meet in 2003, and I think it was like 25 people, and it was like the biggest meet in the state that year. And there was, the cash prizes, there's no such thing. We had, I think, little like cup trophies or something.
Was it down in Hampton?
It might have been, yeah. Yes.
Was there a bodybuilding show involved?
There was, yeah. There was a bodybuilding show.
I don't know how
after.
I figured that out.
Were you in the bodybuilding show?
No, I was not. Thank God.
So that's all we got. Again, if you like it, subscribe on YouTube. Give us a thumbs up. Leave a comment. Again, iTunes, 5 stars, review. And
what is Stitcher?
Stitcher's like an Android podcast hosting.
It's just another podcast distribution sort of thing for the people who aren't on iTunes.
Yeah. But if you have an iPhone, you can also have Stitcher.
There you go.
Just so you know. And that's all we got. Hashtag it Movement RVA. Hey, Jake, sign us off.
Remember, it's just exercise.